Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. Now, I thought, look, we've got to do an Indian Wells update, and also I have to talk about Andy Murray. So I'm probably going to do this video just on Andy Murray and the Alexander Zverev match because I did a watch along for it. Thank you everyone who joined, and do stay tuned for a separate video on the Indian Wells update and kind of score lines, as you know I do for most tournaments, going through the scores, upsets, and also how I think it's going to kind of line up in terms of the respective matches for the coming day or days, and who I think is going to win, etc. And just a nice little general conversation on that. Also, if you haven't already, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel. Really does help us out. And do check out our interview with WTA player Jamie Loeb. If you're a fan of tennis, you'll definitely be a fan of that interview. So do check it out. It's on the channel as well. Cool. Let's get into this. So Andy Murray. Now, the reason why I want to discuss Andy Murray is very simple. After doing the watch along and watching the match from start to finish, it was increasingly apparent the more I watched that we are starting to see Murray almost kind of near to his old self. When I say old self, I mean kind of near to a level that is going to be competitive against pretty much anyone. Now, I think we need to take and put into context this match. You can see the rankings there. Murray's currently ranked 121. Yes, he's a former Grand Slam champion. Yes, he's a former Olympic champion. This guy is one of the big four, as they used to say and still do say. Alexander Zverev, number 4 in the world. He is very likely to win at least one Grand Slam. He's definitely tracking towards that. Had a very good year, obviously winning the Olympics, making the semis of the US Open. Making the quarterfinals of the Australian Open, making the semifinals of the French, making the last 16 of Wimbledon. So look, he is clearly coming basically, and it's a matter of time. Medvedev obviously won the US Open this year, and I think Zverev, I wouldn't be surprised if he wins one next year, a Grand Slam that is. For Murray though, this was an interesting matchup. He never lost to Zverev before. They had a 2-0 head-to-head going into this match. Zverev, one of them was when Zverev was 18. So, Murray, I think, was number 1 and number 2 in the world. And the other was last year after the end of the pandemic. And Murray obviously beating Zverev in his first match back from the pandemic. And that's fine. Why does Zverev and has Zverev struggled in the past with Murray? It's because of his, I said this on the stream, his tennis IQ, the fact that he has a lot of different looks to his game. He's got more tools in the bag in terms of variation than Zverev. But in terms of if you look at his game from a very basic standpoint, he is probably not better technically than Zverev and anything. If we're looking at very basic things, we're looking at serve, we're looking at return. I mean, even nowadays, Zverev's return is so good. Is Murray's return better than Zverev's? Now, if we're talking about currently, I'm not sure. We talk about forehand. Zverev's probably better. We look at the backhand, probably Zverev. We look at the net. They're probably about the same, I would say. And we talk about ability to retrieve fitness-wise, get to balls. Zverev is probably up there now because he's worked on that a lot. And even though he's a big guy, he moves around the court well. So I think those are a few things. Those are just examples. But that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. And that's why, when you watch this match, I think it's going to be quite interesting for me to explain why it was a lot closer than maybe some people thought going into it. Zverev was an overwhelming favorite, and even though he hadn't beaten Murray before, he now has beaten Murray, as you can see, and this is the last person in the Big Four that he hasn't beaten, so he was happy about that. But look, Murray, a breakup in both sets. First set, he was 3-love up. Second set, 3-1. And the reason why he got to that stage is because he served very, very well for the most part. You can see here losing 6-4, 7-6. We'll look through some of the stats as well for the match. I think that's quite important as well. So the fact that he managed to hit the same amount of aces as Zverev says a lot. There is a huge significance to this. Zverev has an elite first serve. He's serving at times. I remember watching him at Wimbledon live, and he was genuinely almost hitting the 140 mark, and I'm pretty sure he's breached that before. We're talking about miles per hour, but he consistently hits the late 120s to mid 130 mark every single match. And you might say, well, paces and everything. No, it's not. But he also hits his spots when he's hitting those serves. Murray doesn't have as much power. Back in the day, I remember he could serve up to mid 130s. Wouldn't push anywhere past that, but that's pretty big. He was serving no, he was serving late 120s towards the 130 mark. And to be honest with you, his serve has had more oomph to it in the last few months in terms of not just the first serve, but especially the second serve, which I've mentioned in the past. The fact that he's managed to, completely go away from the second serve, power that speeds that he used to clock up, which we were talking 70 to 85 maximum kind of miles per hour, anywhere between that range. He's now more tracking towards the 80 to 100 mile per hour kind of range, right? Depending on how much kick he puts on the second serve and slice or whatever he wants to do, right? But for the most part, they're all looking above the 90 mile per hour mark, which nowadays is pretty normal. But for him, it's a big plus because that's an improvement in his game that he's made since that surgery, since, to be honest with you, since forever. That is an improvement. Now, serving was so key for him in this. He managed to, I think, set the tone in the first point, a huge ace down the tee on the juice side. And you're just thinking, okay, he's on here, race into a 3-love lead. And the reason why is because he was able to dictate early on. Zverev didn't warm into it, that's for sure, in the first set. But in the second set, he had no excuse. He took the first set and the second set. Murray was just better again in the first half of that set. And both times, Zverev having to recover in each set and managed to obviously come out with the win. What did Murray do well? And I guess what are the signs for him potentially contending for Grand Slams, I guess, is what a lot of people will be jumping towards straight away, because they'll be thinking, well, he played well against Tsitsipas, who is a top 4 player, and, he managed to take into 5 sets. He had opportunities in that. He beat Alcaraz, who had a very good run, obviously, in the US Open. So that's a really big win, and it was a big win for sure. He's managed now to push Zverev, had chances to win that, didn't take it, but the signs are there, right? Now, the signs are there, I think, in terms of his movement. He's moving probably the best I've seen him move, which is very, very good in terms of. I just think the significance of that is huge because yes, he's always been a grinder, but I think he actually played more aggressively than I've seen him play in a long time. And I think that was, again, a positive. Yes, he made one forced errors, especially on the kind of the backhand side as well, which we're not as used to seeing. It's normally his pillar, his rock that is very dependable, but he tried to go for a little bit more at times on it. Maybe didn't choose the right options, in different scenarios. But I think overall, the general approach of being slightly more aggressive from Murray was a positive one. Trying to dictate in rallies and not get bullied by Zverev is an important thing. You don't want to be playing at the paces that Zverev wants to play at consistently. He didn't mix it up, Murray, as well, the backhand slice, which I thought was clever at times, even on this surface where slice doesn't really have much. You don't get too much reward for playing the slice. It just meant that if he hit the slice well enough and angle enough, deep enough, which is all these ifs and buts, but he hit that, and also in the middle of a rally where he mixed it up at the right times, Zverev having to bend very low and then hit that ground stroke on the backhand side can be difficult. But I think maybe the Zverev in the past that he played last year and a few years back is not the Zverev of today. And I think nowadays he is so good at getting low to those balls, and he just puts them away constantly. He really does, and he doesn't make many mistakes anymore. With balls that low, and I think that was quite impressive from Zverev. I think Murray at times, the tactic that he did use effectively was the shorter forehand cross court at an angle, which I think for anyone, including Zverev, especially on the forehand side for Zverev, if he's running on the forehand side or he's in an uncomfortable position, the forehand can break down. It did at times, but similarly for Murray, it did as well. And Zverev utilized it. I think Zverev actually wanted to engage in the forehand to forehand exchanges, which I think for Murray was probably, it's not going to be favorable in most instances. And I think in the backhand to backhand exchanges, Murray then sliced a few times where maybe he should have hit the drive backhand, because Murray's backhand is probably one of the best backhands on tour in terms of looking at two-handers. Today or yesterday, sorry, when the match happened, it probably wasn't at its best. But I think the fact that Murray managed to get into the positions he did in both sets probably shows that the plan that he was employing, the tactics he was trying to utilize, for the most part, were working. And I think it was a case of a few points then, since then, a couple of missed first serves, a couple of mistakes, unforced errors that started to kind of come into the game of Murray. Then I think came back to bite him, but for the most part, it was good. A couple of things to look at. I mean, the drop shot from him is it's one of the things in his arsenal that he loves to play, and I understand that. But at times, I think he overused it. Tried to go. I mean, he overused it against Alcaraz. He tried to play that slice, that backhand slice drop shot, down the line, and against Alcaraz, he dumped it into the net about 6 or 7 times, and I think he pulled it off once or twice. Against Zverev here, again trying to utilize the drop shot, and at times it did work. At times he got a bit fortunate because Zverev got to it, and then Murray managed to lob Zverev, and the smash was there, but he was going backwards, and he just completely messed up the smashes, and that's very uncharacteristic from Zverev. But at other times, Zverev got there, and he then ended up, you know, ended up besting Murray in that rally because it wasn't the right option at the time. So I think overall, though, positive signs for Murray, no doubt. And I don't want to compare him to the Murray of 2016, for example, because I don't know personally if we're ever going to see him back there. But if we look at how he played today, if he can play the aggressive brand, the slightly more aggressive brand of tennis that he played yesterday, sorry, even, and trust himself to get the drive back. And I think because of conditions as well, and playing Zverev, he maybe didn't as much, but if he trusts himself in that and trust his ability to be able to, I think, be better and win the majority of points in the backhand to backhand rallies, he will definitely, I think it will definitely be a good thing for him. Um, he will end up gaining success through that route. And I think the forehand at times he'll think more on it, and he needs to. The issue with his forehand is, for the most part, he hits it with a lot of clearance. It's a safe shot. It's a lot of clearance and top spin, and not a lot of pace on it. But as soon as it drops short, as soon as it's a little bit short, the opponent is just licking their lips and steps in, and that's what Zverev did at times. And that's probably partly why he was managed to come back into, because he loved the forehand to forehand exchanges. If Murray breaks down the forehand, it's dropping short, and it's just he's a sitting duck, really. So that's something to improve on, I'm sure, and that's something that, to be fair, has improved for Murray since he's come back from surgery. He got to a stage, obviously, when he was at the top of the game, where it was, I wouldn't say it was a huge weapon, but it was a weapon still. And I think at times he did dictate with a forehand, which is good to see in this match, because Zverev is a very clean hitter of the ball and probably one of the best strikers on tour. So the fact that Murray was able to keep pace with him is a positive sign. The fact that he was able to outthink him at times, very positive. The fact that he was able to outserve Zverev was very positive. And I think the final thing actually is the fact that he was stepping in a foot inside the baseline against Zverev's second serve. I have never seen anyone do this, and I could be wrong, and please feel free in the comments to correct me, but I've never ever seen anyone do this. And the fact that he managed to do that was, and actually, for the most part, returned very well. Against that second serve, stepping in so far in was really, really impressive. The backhand, in to win backhand on the line was really good on the juice side. And then on the ad side, he was impressive as well. So I think Murray's returning is something that is never going to never going to go. It's clearly something that's very instinctive, and I genuinely thought that was impressive from Andy Murray, and he's definitely adapting. Um, I feel like there was a stage for about a year and a half where he thought he could play exactly how he used to play. I think maybe he's come to the realization that he needs to adapt his game slightly. And yes, there's still going to be the core, the core strengths in his game that he will probably always have, and also potentially the core weaknesses. But is how can he shift his game though in a positive direction to, I think, be competitive in this current climate? And I think he's definitely tracking towards that. Can he be competitive in Grand Slams? I don't know. I think next year, to be honest with you, I think if he goes deep in any Grand Slam tournament, I think that is a positive. But if he gets a good draw, can he get to a quarter final of a slam? Yeah, I don't see why not. If he plays this type of level and he gets a favorable draw, it's not out of the realms of possibility. He's just pushed the number four seed hard here, and he will only improve as long as he stays healthy. He will only continue to improve. If he serves like how he served today as well, and on quicker courts, I think he'd prefer it as well. For example, in somewhere like Australia, I think he's going to. I think he's going to do quite well. I'm not going to say he's going to win a Grand Slam because I don't think, given the current circumstances, he is going to. Would I be surprised if he does? Yes, a little bit. Would I be super surprised if he does? No, because of his quality. But it's going to be hard, of course. Can he be competitive? Yes. And that's the main answer that I'm going to give. He can be competitive for sure, as he showed today. It's just a question of can his body last a whole week, whole 2 weeks at a Grand Slam without breaking down. And I think only he can answer that. But in terms of level of tennis, he is definitely in a positive. He's tracking to, positively, I think, towards being very, very competitive against the big players. So, good signs. Obviously, no Nadal and Federer and Djokovic at Indian Wells, but Murray was here. Good to see him. The crowd really enjoyed it as well. Some fantastic points. The match point was incredible. Some incredible network from Zverev managing to fend off Murray after it was a I think it was actually no, it was a drop shot from Murray. I think it was. No, it wasn't. It was a shorter ball from Murray. Zverev came into the net, and then some fantastic double volley from Zverev, which I just thought was incredible reaction on the backhand volley. Murray going wide, smashes his racket down in frustration at the match point, and it's because he knew he had chances, and he said that after. And Zverev said that the level was very high in the second set, and I have to agree. At times, it definitely was, and it's not going to be the highest level I've ever seen, but it was high. And I think Zverev, saying that it's only good for tennis for Murray to come back at his best level, and I agree. And they don't seem to see eye to eye on a lot of things, and clearly aren't the best of mates or anything. But look, I think Andy Murray is tracking towards a good place. And let's see how he does. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. I've gone a bit longer than I anticipated. Thank you very much. Please remember to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. Stay safe and well. Click the notification bell to get alerted to all the new videos. We are also on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, Discord, Facebook. Check us out. As you can see at the bottom of the video are links to Instagram and Facebook, so do check us out there as well. Thank you very much, guys. And if you do want to support the channel, we are on Patreon. So yeah, if you want to help us out, then that would be greatly appreciated as well. And that's all for me. Thank you very much.